morning, everyone. My name is Santiago Murillo, and today with my partner Alejandro Alvarez, we are going to talk about the North American author Edgar Allan Poe. He was born in 1809. He was orphaned before he was 3 years old and was adopted by a merchant in Virginia who gave him his last name. As a young man, he entered the army under a false name and reached the rank of sergeant major. He came back when he found out about the death of his stepmother and then broke all this with his adoptive family. Then he began to live with his aunt in Baltimore, and years later he would fall in love and marry with his cousin Virginia. But 11 years later, she died. In 1849, he was found dead, unconscious, on the street of Baltimore due to a terrible drunkenness. Also, Edgar was considered as the father of fantasy and horror novels, apart from being the creator of the modern whodunit. So now we are going to continue with my partner talking about one of his stories.
Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about the summary of the book Black Cat. Okay, the story is written in the first person and tells the story of a young man who enters into a relationship with a black cat whom he names Pluto. At first, the protagonist treats the cat with affection, but as the story progresses, this bond begins to turn to hostility. The young man also begins to drink more and more alcohol and ends up having violent reactions. In one of these episodes, the narrator ends up killing the cat. Okay. After a while, the young man becomes attached to another cat, which is very similar to the previous one. Again, what the first is affection turns into violence and aggression. At one point, he takes an axe to kill the cat, but his wife gets in the way and ends up killing her. Cornell, the narrator, decides to wall up his wife's body, and that is to place it on a wall behind a lodger of bricks. When the police arrive at his house to inspect it, the man feels very safe and lets them search everything. In the basement, the man, playing with a pride, makes the mistake of pinning his button against the wall in question. At the moment, a hole begins to be heard. Then the police breaks the wall and discover that behind it was not only the woman, but also the cat that the narrator had killed, which according to him is the one who gives him away with his hole.
Well, I'm going to finish by giving a summary of a very special story for Edgar, because with it he won his first prize in a literary contest in 1933. I'm talking about manuscript found in a bottle. The narrator is a solitary man and a student of the German moralist, who embarked as a passenger in the port of Batavia on a cruise through the archipelago of the Sunda Islands. A few days later, a cloud spread over the horizon. The moon took on a dark red hue, and the sea had a strange appearance. As night fell, the sea became extremely calm, and the man feared that a big storm was going to happen. He confided his fear to the captain, but he ignored him. At midnight, he went up on deck. The sea crashed violently over the ship and swept from stern to stern. What was left of the ship came afloat, and only the man and an elderly suite had survived. A hurricane pushed them at great speed, and they stayed like that for 5 days and 5 nights. During the day, the sun did not illuminate. It just gave off a dull and gloomy glow, until one day it abruptly went out. The 6th day never came, because both were plunged into an absolute darkness. They tried to calculate the time and distance, but they got nowhere despite sailing so fast. The waves rocked them up and down. Suddenly, a villain-like appeared on the top of a wave, which turned out to be a ship, which descended toward them, crashing and destroying what was left of their ship. The sweetie disappeared, and the man fell on the new ship. He ran to hide, but soon realized that none of the members of the ship were aware of his presence. He welcomed among them without being seen. He says that they spoke a foreign language and that they were all old. He studied the ship and wondered if it was an old Spanish ship from ancient times. He described his feeling about the captain, the bad weather hitting the ship, and the fears that haunt him. He described the ship ending up in a whirlpool. All the crew seeming more hopeful than desperate, and between the roar, the howl, and the thunder on the ocean, the ship sinks.